just like
And
that,
just like that, it's Wednesday night.
yeah. Hey, I was watching the intro, man, and it's like, dang, some of the pictures are like 10 years old, dude. It does feel like it is. It didn't feel like 10 years old until I started looking at the pictures. I'm like, dang.
The picture of me in the green car in the background, that was the very first when they had the zip tie drags. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That was the very first zip tie drags ever. That was me driving from wherever that was. It was the first year I bought that. It was
It was like in Phoenix or something, right?
Yeah, it was actually in Irwindale. So we started in Irwindale, and then that was us driving across the 10 to one of our checkpoints. We were driving all the way over, and we were getting barbecue in some place out in Barstow or something like that. I don't remember, but that was us driving across in the very first zip tie drags.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody seems to be here tonight.
And you're back. Dallas is back.
Yeah, I'm back from my vacation. I took my son. We went to this place called the Soaky Mountain Water Park. So we spent 2 days over there. It's like a hotel over in the Smoky Mountains, where they have like water slides and stuff inside the hotel. Right.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was totally bitching. So we had a good time doing that. We stayed at the Wilderness Hotel, which has the water slides and stuff. And then across the street is the Soaky Mountain Water Park, which has like the serious water slides, which we spent a whole day there. I got sunburned, and now I'm going to be red for the rest of the year.
It takes a whole year for you to regenerate, right? To come back.
I like molt like a lizard after like September.
You start just shedding, right? Just scaling up. All right, you want to go through and you're a little better at greeting the guests than I am.
Well, I don't think I can. Well, maybe I can. All right, so LP94 Lars is here. Bobby Frizzell snuck in early tonight. Miss Catgy, hey, it's Fat Albert. KF Skyhawk is here. Let's see, Mohawk 62, Slant Daily Garage. What's up, suckers? Miss Catgy, Mexican Spec, Mama M3 is here, calling Tebow. Clayton's Toolbox, Michael Schmidt, and of course, the illustrious Mr. John Wilburn. Hello, all.
John Wilburn.
Yeah. Val 360 Jimmy has jumped in right at the last minute. So he says, hey, all, nice to see the band back together. And we were like the Blues Brothers. We were like putting the band back together.
Right. The one thing I got to say is that there's no better dynamic duo on basically on YouTube now. I won't say on TV, but than you and I got to say, man, it just feels good.
Works.
It works. It works.
Yeah. I think we do work well together.
Right. So Clayton's Toolbox is asking, I'm doing a car 1970 style with the rear tire sticking out. What do you consider the minimum clearance to the top of the sticky tire or the slick tire to the wheel well lip to the front and back? Sorry.
Dude, the stink bug stance.
The stink bug stance. Now, we have a person in here, and if they come in, Dust Devil Garage, doesn't he have that look? Doesn't he have
Brian's got the stink bug stance like nailed.
Yes. I remember back in the day that everybody had that, and they had the tall shackles, and they put the 295 5015s on their Nova or their Dart. If I remember, literally when they were talking about 3 fingers of a bag, it was literally 3 fingers is what I remember from the tire to the fender. Now, whether that's correct or not, I just remember back in the 80s and early 90s, that's what it was, 3 fingers from the tire to the fender. So whatever that distance is. Now, could be right or wrong, but that's what I remember. What's yours, Dave?
That's probably the correct clearance, but okay. So the reason why this went away was because it makes the car horrific to drive. It is like it cannot handle any freaking suspension motion at all.
It's twitchy too. Have you driven one?
I have, and they're a quarter panel wrinkling son of a bitch is what they are. Because if you hit anything like a speed bump or something that you're not paying attention to, railroad tracks, whatever, the body generally gets down on the tire and the tire's rotating, right? So it'll, especially if you use like a slick, it will literally grab the quarter panel and pull it forward and just fucking wreck stuff. I'm not a big fan of the stink bug stance just because of that. I mean, what if you go a little bit before the stink bug stance from the 70s, let's say the early 70s or late 60s when they had the stink bug stance, when it was starting to take an effect, the real racers that were running that kind of profile had wheel wells that were actually had like fender flares on them.
Yeah.
So that way it would come out around the tire. Now they looked kind of goofy, and there was a reason why they got away from them, because it didn't look like a factory car. But man, I tell you what, if you can figure out how to work some fender flares in there so it does not rub on the body,
Yeah.
that's the best way to go. And then the car itself will handle, like suspension travel or body roll so much better. It may look a little goofier, but I would highly consider it.
Also, too, if you're going to do this, get some upper control arms. And here's, now that I've been doing a lot more since the 80s and to now, I've done a lot more alignments. And you're going to want some caster, because the car is sticking up like this. So now your caster is not in line. It's more facing forward. And I remember that when I would be driving them, the car would be really twitchy. You hit a bump and didn't want to go over the road. If you're going to do this stance, I would compensate whatever angle you're going up, put that angle in caster, in I think it's positive, caster back. So that way it's laying back. So that way it kind of gives it more drivability, because that was the biggest issue. So if you go up, go back
Right.
with the
It
caster.
throws, when you put it at the stance like this, it shifts all the weight to the front tires. So it'll be a burnout machine. It will not hook and go. Okay, there's no way you could actually make that rear suspension work with that stance. The ideal thing would be like he's saying, when it shifts all the weight like this, it actually screws up the front suspension geometry pretty horribly. So I would definitely compensate for it, and I would try to put as minimal stink bug in there as possible.
Yeah. Actually, someone here, Mohawk 62, saying, yeah, that's how we did it, 3 fingers. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah.
You know, Val 360 Jimmy saying that you're right, Shane. I've been watching some older older lives, and you two guys just click. No, I agree. I mean, it's now we've had guests on here. It works great. It's just not the same. So.
Right. Yeah. When one of us is gone, which is primarily me. I'm sorry, everybody. I had to take some time for myself. My life is like crap right now. So I'm just kind of doing the best.
So holla at Mexican Spec. I saw a comment of yours, bring a trailer on the 77 black freewheeling short bed dent side. I was looking at to see how to do a proper blackout job on my grills. Oh, okay. Oh, here's actually Brian himself. I have about 2.5 inches of clearance to the top of the super stock springs and the Rancho shocks. I'm using mine as a race car. Okay. 2.5 inches. That's bigger than 3 fingers.
Oh, that's about 2.5 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 fingers is about 2.5 inches.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. But in reality, what you should do is readjust your bump stops if you're going to do that with that leaf spring car, because you do not want the quarter panel to get into the tire whatsoever. One, it'll cut it down fast.
Yeah.
And then two, it has the opportunity, since the tire is rotating. You ever seen like 2 sprint cars get together when the tires are rotating? Yeah. Same thing happens with your quarter panel, except for it's fixed into position and it's got no place to go. So it'll like wrinkle that sucker up pretty good.
Brian saying if mine was a street car, I'm sure I would have the tires sticking out because I wouldn't worry about hitting bumps. Right? See, where is the next one here? You want to go ahead and grab this one?
Okay. Well, this is a Mexican Spec talking to Danny Boyd. So the best thing to do is grab a question here.
I'm looking for one. Here we go.
Okay. Do you have any experience using Permatex Ultra Copper in lieu of exhaust manifold gaskets on cast iron manifolds? No, I do not. Well, okay, I did. That used to be the thing to do. Okay, but since then, things have evolved. There is a gasket. There's an exhaust manifold gasket, or actually a header gasket called Remflex, that is literally the best gasket you will probably ever use on the exhaust side.
Hands down. Hands down.
Yeah. So I would throw the Permatex Ultra Copper in the circular file and get myself some Remflex gaskets. They might be like $20 for your application, but you will probably never replace those things ever again.
You know what's funny about that is I did call up Remflex, and I'm waiting to hear back. I was going to wait for a surprise on that, but because I was like, man, we love your stuff, man. So, why not? We'll advertise for you.
Yeah, they're probably not going to call.
Yeah. It's worth a shot.
I tried calling them for like sponsorship with the AHRA. I was trying to get a hold of American USA manufacturers, right? So it was like Airmotive and who else is in? There's one in Kansas. Well, Airmotive is in Kansas. and then Remflex was another one. There was ones I ran around at PRI, and I actually wrote down on a notepad,
Mhm.
um, and then hit them up, but zero replies.
Yeah.
So
And it's funny thing about working for Edelbrock now, PRI and SEMA, 90% of the people who talk to you have a YouTube channel and want something and they want a sponsorship. It,
yeah,
literally, that's just how it goes. You get a stack of cards. Like I'm there, I work the booth sometimes, just kind of answer questions. And I'll have a stack literally of like 20 or 30 cards of like, hey, give us something for free. We'll try it out and we'll give you a fair review. And I'm like, yeah, right. Michael Schmidt's asking, tuning tech. How do we tune? So sorry, I'm going to change glasses. You're going to have to grab these, dude.
okay.
Yeah.
Tuning tech. Do and how do tuners use exhaust temps to improve and or monitor performance? What can be improved doing this? Recommended. Okay. First things first. Exhaust temps. The higher the temp, generally the leaner it is. Okay. Now it can be. You can have a really high temp, but you got like say too little timing in it. Okay,
Yeah.
too little timing will cause some seriously high exhaust temps
Yes.
too, right? It doesn't matter if it's fat or lean, but generally what you're looking at is the leaner it is, the higher the exhaust temp. So the ideal situation is, I don't look necessarily at temps, especially when it's gasoline, because I mean, exhaust temps is something that usually diesel guys use to tune. But if you go to like a professional dyno shop, they will use exhaust temps, but primarily the big thing they look at is air fuel ratio. And what you try to do is you try to minimize the exhaust temp by fattening it up, and it should generally make more power each time, right? Until the temps start to come down to a reasonable number, which is usually like anywhere from like say 13 to 1600 degrees. Then you start looking at, okay, am I falling off on power? If you're starting to fall off on power, then you're fat enough. You need to back her up, you know. But exhaust temps usually don't come into play until you got it. Like I go with the air fuel ratio, right? So wide open throttle, you're looking at um, well, I don't know, about 12.7, 12.5, depends on your combination, I
Yeah.
guess.
Air cooled too, like 12.2 for air cooled. Yeah.
Really? Okay, I didn't know they like that much. But
Yeah.
but then cruising, you want to get like maybe like 14.2, 14.7, somewhere around there, cruising. But temperature wise, you don't really care what the temperatures are until it's under full load, high gear,
Mhm.
and then all you do is just add jet till it stops making power, and then you're done. So whatever the exhaust temp is the exhaust temp. But generally, you're going to find your lowest exhaust temps when you got your ideal timing and ideal air fuel ratio.
Yeah. I agree with all that. So Jimmy is asking Shane. I'm assuming saying Shane. Shane, should I pin the ATI damper to the Hemi crank? Not sure what position to put it in. There's no timing pointer on the Gen 3 Hemi. Yes. Okay. So yes, put it on there, pin it. But what I always do is that I check it. Obviously with TDC on number one. And then they do sell aftermarket pointers for those that have an adjustment. So they bolt right onto the front case, and then they have an adjustable pointer on it. So that way you can hit it right on there. I always do that because some people say, well, this engine likes 25 degrees. This one likes 27 degrees. This one likes 22 degrees. They're probably all the same. It's just that where the pointer at wasn't true dead on, and they're just throwing on the dampener and they're just, putting it on there. They're usually within a couple degrees. So I definitely would get a pointer, and they do sell them aftermarket for that. But just check it to make sure it's true TDC. And on a Hemi, the valve cover, the spark plug comes straight down, so you can get one of the stops, and you could even just put a small rod on it with a dial indicator, and then just come up with a piston until it stops moving up, and then just go with 50 thousandths down one way, 50 thousandths down the other. That'll be about 11 and a half degrees on either side. Dead in the center is your zero. So it's really, really simple. Blue Grit saying I wasted $30 on Renflex gaskets because after torquing the headers, they hit my steering, and Renflex do not like to be removed. That is
Oh, they do
correct.
not. Yeah.
No,
But
that's
you
it.
can probably, since you've already used them, you can probably, just like you're talking about the Permatex, you could probably Permatex them suckers back together. Because I'm certain that Remflex would be happy with some, gold Permatex on it. Uh,
Right?
I don't know. As pricey as they are, I try to use them.
Yeah. This is for you, man.
Now I have not yet took the converter out of the new find yet, but the 225 swings over. Stock specs were 155 horsepower and 235 foot-pounds of torque. I I think that converter belongs behind a big block. I do think so. He's got a what are we 16 minutes in? He's got a switch pitch converter out of a 6-cylinder car, which is like rare as hen's teeth, right? They didn't make but a few because it was an option. Generally, the switch pitch stuff was an option. And when you have a V6 car, they were generally like a special. So they didn't come with many options on them. But he's got one that's a switch pitch converter out of a V6, which is rare as hen's teeth. And I think it'd be awesome behind a big block because it would be like 2,800 stall and then 1,800. So something like that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And it's factory stuff. So, I mean, it's like perfect.
Yeah. So you guys may have noticed I got a transmission here. You see this? With all the really nice.
Is that a switch pitch?
I know. Well, it almost could be. It could be, I guess, but it's a 904 that's got, I mean, we call it the forfer. So it's a 904 low band apply, trans brake, reverse manual valve body with lockup. So there's your forfer, right? Okay.
Well, so it is a switch pitch. So it's got like probably a 3,000 stall and a 0 stall. Right?
Exactly. So technically, yes, right? It's a direct couple. But now you're going to see a video coming out on this, but everybody's done a 904 video on how to build a transmission. This is not that. This is a video that's going to be about what it takes to put one of these in it. So you're not going to see me putting, stacking each piece. No. This is to put in this valve body. So this is a combination of TCI and CRT, Cope Racing transmissions, the valve body king of Chicago, and putting this thing together. So it's going to be rather special because I've taken this thing, I put it together, taken it apart a few times, and John is going to be getting back a whole bunch of parts because I took apart his transmission. We'll talk about that later on, but this is the transmission that he built for Plan Z. Okay, I'm not going to say the name, but this is the original one he built for Plan Z 4 or 5 years ago, and he did a 5-part series. I'm going to pin those series to this video when I put it up there because some of those parts are in here, but John's getting back the rest of his stuff. But there was a major faux pas that something happened that it's not John's fault. I repeat, it is not John's fault. It was somebody else went into this transmission and changed something. And you can watch in the 4-part series where John's putting it together, and there's nothing wrong with what he did. 100%, nothing wrong. And the same reason why I did this one is I showed how much clearance is between each of the clutches and everything. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm off my little high horse. I'm sorry, but
it's all right. Buick Smith has another question down there.
Right here?
He watched John's video on starting gear ratios.
Yep.
And I think this is Andy Wood's video, isn't it?
Well, no. Well, maybe, but John did this also too about 4 years ago with this transmission with the other transmission. So yeah, he was doing like starting ratios, and he goes, "Is there a chart to figure out ratios for acceleration, weight versus horsepower or torque?" The thing is that it really comes down to tire. There's so much more factors involved.
Yes, I was going to say that there's so many variables in this.
Yeah, it's not just that. There's probably about another 17 that go to behind that tire diameter, rollout, how much
torque at what RPM.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this morning, weren't we? Just about this, yeah. So there's more to it than that. It's not really that, but you really want to know what the engine is doing. If you can get it on a dyno, that's the best thing to do. Just look for where peak torque is, because that's what you're going to get the converter. The max horsepower is going to be your shift. So you're just going to be just beyond the parabolic, then you're going to shift. But you got to know where the torque's out for the correct converter, and that's really it. I
have to agree, because there's one thing that we never talk about on here, and it's kind of like, if you go back and look at it, it's almost the unwritten rule is how the flow goes. But after you build a combination and you make the cam, match the intake manifold, match the carburetor, match all that stuff, and you take it to the dyno. The compression ratio work with everything, right?
Yep.
You take it to the dyno as step one, because after the dyno, you can mathematically figure torque converter, you can mathematically figure gear ratios, you can mathematically figure rear end ratio.
Yep.
All of those factors come into play, especially when you're talking like, because you got to take into account tire size, weight of the car, all that stuff, and you can come up with a really good ballpark number on what this thing's going to run, right? But generally, the rule of thumb, if you're looking for something like this, the less torque at low RPM, the higher the ratio that you need from the transmission, the torque multiplication to begin with. Now, this is where a 700 R4 would come into play. If you had something like a 4.3 liter V6, it's probably a good combination. 4.3 liter V6, 700 R4, or 4L60E, because they got that wicked low first gear.
And a high stall, really high stall.
Right. The problem comes in when you got your 4.3 V6 and it's got a step between those gear ratios, and there's such a huge spread. It lugs the motor so hard that it actually feels slower than what it is, because the gear ratio spread's so terrible. It actually worked better if you probably took the first gear ratio out, put the Sonex 288 in it, and then ran that. Would probably be smoother. It may be a little bit doggier off the line, but you can always make that up with rear end gear ratio.
Yeah. And he's got a real good point on that, because that's actually been the hardest thing on this, is that I was really debating whether to even put the low ratio first and second gear in this, because this is a super light vehicle. So, because of the gear ratio in this, am I going to slow the car down by having the first gear of a 277 instead of a 245? Technically, you want them as close as possible, but a low ratio is good for a car that's a little heavier with low horsepower, but slant six, not very much horsepower or torque. So even with the turbo, it's going to be down there, maybe 400 at the most.
You might not want the low first in that combo because it's got a turbo. It would want to load the turbo.
That's why I want a 391 gear. Is that I see a 391 gear would put me right at about a 420 first gear ratio, which would be perfect, right? And then when I go to second, then it's going to be like, say, a 411. Then in drive, then it's a 391. So it'd be like having all three gears. Rear ends, and that would be probably the best, but I'm going to run what I have and see what it does, and see if it taps out or where it's at. And I've got the other gear ratios.
I think it's going to probably be fine. Like first gear may be a little bit quick, right? Yeah. But I think it honestly overall, second gear and third gear is going to be like magic. I think when you get to third and probably second and lock it up, as soon as you hit the lockup on that converter, the magic is all going to happen.
Yeah. Right. And John says no lockup going down the track. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to use lockup going down the track.
You have a trans brake on it, right?
Oh yeah.
Trans brake can only be applied in first.
First gear. Yeah. On this one, yes, only in first gear. There's not.
Okay. So there's got to be some kind of switch that tells it it's in first gear.
Yeah.
Right. You use that same switch and piggyback off of that, and don't let the converter lock up, but then automatically let it lock up when that switch is no longer being made. So when it's in second gear and above.
Yeah. Let that thing just eat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because as soon as it hits lockup, man, it's going to load that motor hard. And that's when that turbo is really going to spool up and make some steam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess we're not talking a lot of steam, maybe hot water.
Right. It'll be like my tea right here, right? It'll be kind of like it'll be my pinky out toting tea.
Yes.
Oh, the Nelsons are in here. Awesome. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah. Late to the show. Sorry, Calvin. I had a great time last week. And good evening, gang from Team Nivlac 57. Man, if you guys haven't been watching all the neat stuff these guys are cranking out over at Nivlac, go check them out. Andrew and Calvin do a really good job of one, working together as a family team. And then two, man, they crank some stuff out like super fast. I don't know how they do it. I don't know where they find all the energy. Is like,
there's two. There's two. That's why.
Well, I mean, are you guys sponsored by Folgers? I mean,
no, it's twice as fast because there's two. You have two capable human beings that can divide and conquer on a project.
Three, isn't there? Because it doesn't Andrew's wife like jumping on this too?
Well, I think she does a lot of the videoing, but what I'm saying though is that as far as the actual mechanical work, you have two. Like you're one man at auto, I'm one man and my kids auto, but they're they're only around for a little bit, but literally it's one man auto. So I was watching their latest video on the 57, and I
Uh,
feel their pain because of the rust issues.
oh, dude. Well, welcome to the club. My 63 Buick has been nothing but that. Dude, you got to see this piece I cleaned up today to get put on the car. It's just like, okay, behind the scenes footage for 63 Buick stuff. I know everybody's been screaming for it, but I'm waiting till I can literally pull out all the stops and just hammer it. Clint from Clint Street Machines and I went to a junkyard in Knoxville, and they had a complete 63 Buick special in the yard.
No way.
Yeah. And I went in there. It was so rusted. Oh God, it was so rusted. And I looked at it for a couple minutes and I said, Clint, I'm just going to take the whole back half of the car. And so it was so rusted. It had no trunk floor and the frame was rusted out. So we sawed through quarter panels on both sides and took the whole back half of the car off. And I brought it home and I got this piece. It makes Plan Z look like a cherry, right? This thing is so rusty. I'm literally considering taking my crashed pieces and welding them onto this thing so that I have something that actually looks like presentable, right? It is so bad. But
I gotta tell you, the last video I did on this one, the spring relocations on this car, I've never had such a trouble doing those before because I had to cut, and then I had to keep cutting up because the rust had got inside the frame, and it looked okay on the outside, but it was rusting on the inside. When you tried to weld to it, it just kept blowing holes. I had to box it in. Man, it was like it took me almost 3 weeks to complete a 1-day job, 3 weekends, because I got tired of it and I had to walk away from it because I was getting frustrated with it. Plus, to drill out all those those bolts that were welded on, booger welded, and then what I thought were welds, but actually weren't welds because it was a booger weld to rust that you just hit and it just fell right off. And you're like, and then you're looking around the rest of the car and you're seeing like those welds on some of the frame, and you're like, yeah. So I've been going through and grinding, cutting, and re-welding some spots, and I'm not showing that stuff, but I got to tell you, John said it in his live last week on Friday, is that I'm adding what John said, 10 pounds of weight, but a whole bunch more drivable. And I think if I close the door enough, I'll lose that 10 pounds, because every time I close the door, there's more. I hear stuff fall from the car onto the ground.
Well, dude, okay, and you're just to like poke you in the eye a little bit. You're used to them California cars that your rust is like a piece of like a dime size on the quarter panel.
If it's that, I walk past I would pass a car that had this much rust on, and be, man, fuck that thing.
Dude, well, okay, and those are considered like priceless in the Midwest, man. Let me tell you about the folks from like the Midwest. Like if you're from like say Maine to I don't know, maybe as far west as Nebraska, right? And then it's like anything further north than like say Kentucky North, okay? They salt the roads in the wintertime because they get plenty of snow. And dude, when I was a kid, like it would not be uncommon that if you crawled up under the car, you had to wear goggles because there was so much crap would fall on your face that you would have your eyes would be so damaged you couldn't even work on it, right? We used to make fun of Mopars because Mopars rusted the worst. And we used to say a Mopar in the Midwest could rust in the middle of the windshield. It is so bad, like they just didn't not take to the rust or to the salt well at all.
I think I know why too, is because all the holes, like at the unibody, there's nothing for the water to drain out in the lowest part. So like literally it just puddles up, so it'll collect rust right there, like, or salt, and it'll just eat itself right through.
What's funny is like at the Midwest cars, we used to say, the best race cars are the rusty ones because they're literally already acid dipped, right? When you get them, it's like, what's lighter?
I wouldn't have understood that, but now I get it.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, Buick Smith's asking a good question here. On a manual trans setup with turbos, with a heavier flyer, would help the turbos load on the launch or hurt it? What's your take on this?
Uh okay, so on a turbo car with a manual trans or just
Yeah, manual trans.
all right, so a turbo car with a manual trans, the heavier the flywheel is what you're going to want to use because it's going to be like it's an NA car. All right, because it's not building any boost whatsoever on a manual trans car until you load that sucker. Okay, and it's going to take a few seconds once you load it. And the heavier the flywheel is what you're going to need to get the car to launch because it's launching like it's naturally aspirated. And then once you let on that clutch, that's when she's going to start loading the turbo. And it really won't be until probably second gear, possibly even third, where it really starts to load the turbo and make the magic happen. So I think that's probably right. The heavier the flywheel.
And and how I can attest to this is that I had a Volkswagen Bug, and I used to race in this class called Superstock, and it was a class in California where you had to run a 165/15 rear tire, so you could run with any combination you wanted. So I started out with NA and had a 22/75, then I went to a 23/32, and I had the lightest flywheel, 2,300-pound Kennedy clutch on it, and it was just and going. In the early 90s, mid 90s, maybe 95, CB Performance came out with this fuel injected one that had turbo and had these 3 dials on it. I got like one of the very first combinations of that. Street racing, that's how I afford it. I raced in that same class. I noticed that with my light flywheel, I would get up on the pop, even though I had fuel injection, it would buck like this coming out. Now, I went back to the heavier, like stock style flywheel, and it worked so much better. Now, is that because the Volkswagen's really light, not making a ton of torque or who knows what? But I can tell you that once I did that, fourth gear was hard to handle because when remember, it's only a small 165 tire and you're running like 22 pounds on it. When I was in fourth gear and that thing was loading up, the car was starting to lift up and you're literally going down the track almost sideways as the car's skating down the track. So, yeah.
I would have to say that was the inertia that was doing the
yes.
buck, right?
Exactly.
Like
stored energy.
As soon as you let out on the clutch, it pulls all the inertia and the stored energy out of the flywheel, because that's the whole point of the flywheel. It's actually acting like a dynamo, right?
Yeah.
And then when you it's storing power from the engine, and when you let out on the clutch, it dumps all that power. Well, the more mass that you have, the longer that power lasts.
Exactly. Wheelie Kings, so much CRT in the background. I love it. Yes. So I did TCI for a while. I got to give a little love to for Cope because he did get me a one-off type of valve body there. And this is a joint effort. This is not just a TCI project with some Cope parts. This is Cope and TCI together making this thing survive in Plan Z. So this is and obviously me building it. But so got to give love where love is due, and he really helped me out with this one. So,
well, Andrew Nelson says here, your 391 and 245 gear are going to make the turbo do the magic.
Yes, I agree, and I really agree with him. And I'm trying to find that 391 gear, but right now this is what I have. So this is what I'm putting in. But the problem with the 245 gear, Andrew, is that it's only got 3 planetaries in it. And this one's got a 4 planetary. So even if I can find, I've got a 323 gear. I don't have a 355, but if I could find a 391 or even a 411 with this gear, that's probably what I'll find. I'm really looking for a 391 gear though, because this has got a 4. These are steel. And they're 4 planetaries on the first and second gear, where the other ones are aluminum, but they're 3 planetaries. And if you look at the size difference, the aluminum ones are like this, where the steel ones are much bigger in diameter. There's about 1.5 pounds difference between them. But at this point, I'd rather take the strength, because Dallas and I are going to have these things. We're going to be driving this car for 1,000 miles.
I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Yeah. What did they say in the Navy? Happy to be here. Proud to serve.
Man.
All right. Buick Smith's asking. Oh, all right. Never mind.
I'm getting back down there. Same. Here we go. Go for it.
He's saying same question for a road race car. Would the lighter flywheel do better with the turbo, or would the heavier flywheel help put more load to help the turbo?
You want the lighter in the road race car, and this is for deacceleration, so that way you can use the engine to deaccelerate on that. And that's the reason why when I was at Crower, I made a lot of cranks and rods. That's where we would get the titanium rods. Literally, in the car going into the corner, you could almost feel each cylinder coming down as it's almost bucking down and pulling it down because it's so light. You can have a 35 pound crankshaft for a small block Chevrolet with rods that were in like the 400-gram range for titanium. So imagine that bob weight was way down there, like 1,100 grams type of bob weight. So in road race cars, you want it as light as possible. Now,
well, he's saying if you look a little bit further down,
okay,
he's saying out of the corners, and like I don't think it's going to matter because the car is already moving.
Yes.
That
I agree.
That mass is what you need to get the car moving.
Right? Yes, right.
Since it's already moving,
light.
Technically, what you should be doing as a good driver in a road race car is where your power band is going to be, whatever gear you put it in, right?
Yep.
So you should drop it in peak torque when you're coming out of the curve. So it really wouldn't matter with the inertia. You'd want it to rev quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a drag race, it's because it's literally at a dead stop, and it's that moment of inertia. How much force does it take to get this thing moving? Michael Schmidt, with a 165 tire, how did you launch without spinning tires? How did you set up the weight distribution and suspension to weight transfer? Seems like a 2332 and you would overpower the tires. Yes. So what I did is in the rear torsion bars, they had like a Sway Away made a 30 millimeter, I think, or is it? They made 30, 29, 28 millimeter. I can't remember, but it was something like that. These are the actual torsion bars. I had a 67. And so I think I had 27s or 28 millimeter torsion bars in the back. And then in the front, I ran a factory front end with drop spindles. Everybody did like a cut and lowered one, so they're really bouncy. But I went in there and I took a stock one. I took some of the plates out, so that way it was dropped down. But it was dropped down because some of the plates were out, because mine was actually a ball joint style front end. And so it would be down on the ground, but then because I had lowering spindles on it, it actually sat lower. So then it would come up, and that's how I would get the weight transfer.
Well, I can't speak to this at all because I didn't race the bugs, but I know Southern California was the first place I ever seen like 12-second daily bugs at the drag strip at Carlsbad, right? And like it was pretty neat because a bug with the independent rear suspension, they would squat hard. Yes. But when you would see these guys like racing them, it's like they had, I don't know, like some suspension stops where the car would squat, but if you over squat it, the tires kick in like this, right?
Yes, right.
Right. So they would squat them until the tires were essentially straight up and down.
Exactly. So that's why I like the swing axles. I would sit mine right about here. So when it squatted, it literally squatted to this spot, and then just that little bit would give it enough to bring the front end up. And because the engine is behind the tires and the transmission is over the tires, I would run 22 pounds of air pressure in the tires, and it did pretty good. I was getting 1.13. 1.4 60 foot times.
These leave big time. And I asked them,
front end
gas tank is up front. So they have to take into account the car is so light with the gas tank up front or the fuel tank up front.
Yeah.
The fuel slosh, they got to take into account because that fuel coming backwards is enough to knock the car's tires off.
Yes.
Because it's like hitting a wall of water, like 20 pounds or 20 gallons of water, or not 20 pounds, it'd be 20 gallons, which at 8 pounds a gallon. So boom, 160 pounds hitting you in the face, and it would literally knock the tires off when the fuel came back.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would run in the front end. When I put the turbo in it, I had to race with a full tank of fuel because the car would, in second gear, would start to, as the turbo would come in, it would actually start to bring the car off the ground. I would tailor my wheelies by how much fuel I would put in the tank. Also, to exactly what he was saying is that the less fuel, it would slosh and make more of a bang. When it was full, it didn't have anywhere to go, so it didn't jiggle nearly as much.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, that made a huge
20-gallon tank too, or whatever it is. I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a 10-gallon tank. I think it's a 10-gallon tank. and it's flat up on top, and then it curves like this, and then it's got a sump in the bottom. So if you've got just a little bit in the tank, it goes back and it sloshes all the way up, and you could hear it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could hear it slosh the fuel in the stands because it would sound like a bang. Like it actually sound like
Yeah.
it sounds almost exactly the same as if you ever been on a boat and hit a fucking wave. It's like
Yep.
bang.
Yes.
And
That's the
it
fuel
almost,
hitting the top of the tank.
yeah.
That's exactly. Wheel King saying, Professor P, will you relate to how I learned about flywheel effect? I grew up on dirt bikes, same physics, different vehicle. I grew up on dirt bikes also. And on my KX 500, I used to run heavy weights on those because 500s are just got a massive amount of torque. So I would put heavier flywheels on there. Now, once again, I'm remembering 22 ounces maybe of extra weight on the flywheel, and it was by Moose. That made all the difference. It actually made tractionable power then, and I would knock some of it out by running the desert pipe instead of the woods pipe. And so yeah, I grew up on dirt bikes also, and that's exactly right. And there's actually one right above you, right here. Go for it.
CS Dallas, that's how my dad got a lot of cheap cars in Iowa. If a car had a rust hole anywhere in the passenger compartment, it wouldn't pass inspection. Illinois, where we lived, didn't care. That's how I grew up in Illinois, in the farmlands of Illinois, and that I can attest to because my family was the only one that owned Flintstone cars. Like we literally had Flintstone cars because they had no floor pans for years. My friend Jeremy Miller, his first car was like a 73 Pinot wagon. I don't know, whatever it was for like the first couple of years of the Pinot wagon, right? It had no floors, zero floors. You could literally watch the road go by and you just had your feet off to the side and that's how you rode in the car.
Yeah.
It was death traps, but I mean, it was all cars were that way. All old cars were like when I was in high school in the early 90s, like the oldest car you'd probably see on the road was like, say, early 80s, maybe 10 years old, because the rest of them were just vaporized. The really nice old cars were put away and they only came out for like the car shows and that's it. They did not see the salted roads at all. So
Andrew Nelson saying, we plan to do 1,000 miles in the 57 idiotic, maybe if completed epic. I agree. We're going to do that in this.
Yeah. No different than Plan Z.
I got to tell you,
we'll be there with you guys, probably breaking down right next to you.
I got to say, watching your car, your 57, and looking at this car, we're compatible on the rust. I think this one's actually a little worse because yours had panels that have been welded onto it. I really watched that. This one had somebody with a hole saw, a whole bunch of booger sugar, and just went through this thing and just started drilling holes in it. And then it just
the story behind how the car became to be is actually pretty epic when you start talking like corrosion of a car. If you don't know the story behind Plan Z, no,
I don't. I know the car.
This car sat with like, I want to say bags of salt in the trunk for like 20 years.
Okay, that makes sense. That's why there's no trunk in the car.
I mean, dude, you couldn't ask for anything worse. Yeah. Like a bag of salt is like literally, you might as well just take your metal and just
vaporize it right then and there.
I mean, it's literally going to eat through the floor of the car.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, we're going to do the same thing. Blue Grit saying something here that's really good. And it's funny because I did some cone dodging with my Volkswagen back when it was really starting to come out in the 90s. And I noticed that when I had the light flywheel in it before it went turbo, and I had like say aluminum flywheel, this is exactly what would happen is it would oversteer because it breaks, so it actually gets so much more traction at the slowing down force from the engine, or what do you call the brake
the engine braking, right?
Engine braking, that's what I'm looking for. Engine braking is so much more because of that. It will actually want to oversteer because it's actually biting down. It's actually allowing it to get the bite on the front end. It's like setting the tire. So sometimes what I notice is that instead of just letting off the throttle, I would roll off the throttle and then come back in and then roll back into it. Also, to the car being, rear engine, doesn't help either. So,
well, Mama M3 has a good question here. Perfect. That's like, why do some cars squat and some raise on launch? I've always wondered that.
Okay.
Well, okay. So when you're talking drag racing, it's like Well, one, generally you find there's two, maybe three different types of rear suspension that you're dealing with that's going to dictate what's happening. Okay. So you got triangulated four link, which is pretty much most of the GM cars. And
Mustangs
then,
too.
huh?
A
The
Mustang.
later Fox bodies, the
Yeah.
later Fox bodies. Okay. And then you have parallel leafs, which is like almost every Mopar, and then the early Ford stuff up until the Fox body. Okay. And then you have the aftermarket, which it's really like a ladder bar setup, which is most every suspension is based on those three. Okay. There is a few things that change when you're talking like later on the four links with the back half rear ends and stuff, but they're still pretty much like a triangulated four link, but they're better. Okay, so when you're talking triangulated four links, they generally are a coil spring rear end setup, and they'll squat under acceleration, the same as a Fox body Ford. It's all with the triangulated four link, they'll generally squat in the rear. The parallel leaf springs have a pinion snubber that keeps the rear end housing from rotating upwards when they launch. And those are generally Mopars and early Mustangs. And what happens is when the pinion on the rear end comes up, it hits that snubber, it lifts the body. So generally the Mopars, you'll see they lift the front end and the rear end. Now, when you're talking like ladder bar setup, and then you got some of the later Camaros, the Buick GNX, they all have like a similar to a ladder bar setup where it has what is that thing called? A panhard rod? Is that right?
Yep.
It goes up through the length of the car.
Well,
but the ladder bar
torque arm.
Torque
arm. Torque arm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the torque arm setup or the ladder bar setup, because a ladder bar is virtually the same as a torque arm, except for there's literally just one torque arm, and in a ladder bar there's two, most of the time. And the ladder bars, they go so far up to the front of they actually go past the driver's seat normally for a ladder bar. And what happens is they intersect at the point of, well, I guess it'd be like
instant center. So your focal point.
Yeah, the past instant center is what you're looking at. And that's where the pinion, or that's where the fulcrum is at for the ladder bar. So it will lift the car. It'll squat first and then lift the car. So that's why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah. On a Mopar too, how they do that is that they would actually have the axle so that it's like 25 and then 75%. So literally 25% back is where the axle's at. And they stack them. And then they put a pinion snubber on there. So what they do is they would do what's called anti-squat. So anti-squat is where you're using the weight of the vehicle and you're shoving the rear end into the ground. And that's why the Mopars from the super stocks would actually raise up. And what they're doing is they're using the weight of the vehicle to shove the rear end to the ground to catch traction. It's like they're trying to dead hook the tires, what they're trying to do. Where some of the GMs would squat. And that's where you're going to have anti-squat. And I'm getting into this because that's what I just did on if you guys watched the Cookie Monster launch last year, I had Caltrax on it. Now the Caltrax had 130% anti-squat. That's why the car would lift up. It would lift up, unload, and that's why I couldn't really launch so hard, because that's what it's set up for. It's not set up for that kind of power that I have, the Caltrax. It's not. I went to a triangulated four link. So now I have setups for different. So if I'm going to run a radial, I'm going to want a higher anti-squat, like 130 or 120 anti-squat. So the car raises up as it goes down the track. So that way it's trying to shove it into the ground. Typically, not all, but typically when you have a slick, you're going to want less than 100% anti-squat. So now, but with this one, since it's it's unequal length triangulated tire, I can launch at say 90%. So the car will slightly squat, but then as the car goes forward and then it raises that, it will, since it's an unequal triangle length, you can move the instant center as it goes down. So the car it squats, then it starts to raise up. And then with your front suspension, the things start to separate. Then you can go from 90 to 110. So now the car is extending. So I can use the squat on the slick and then raise it back up and as it go back out. Is that going to be ideal? Don't know. I can do that, but that's the whole point of these things. So that way you can kind of go from that.
I'm going to address something here real quick. That
sure.
Oh man, what is it? The John Calvert traction bars. What do they call them?
Yes, Calvert, Caltrax, Calvert.
Caltrax. Okay.
Yeah.
The Caltrax, I'm just going to explain real quick, is one of the best traction devices for a leaf spring car that you can possibly get. Now, here,
Up to a power point, up to a power level.
Let me explain why he was saying the PowerPoint is because John Calvert was a super stock racer that invented those.
Yes.
And what you're dealing with is a car that doesn't have a ton of horsepower. It's usually like 500 horse, 600 horsepower. And that's what you're dealing with getting down the track. When you start talking like 1100 horsepower, it was never designed for anything like that. And it was never designed for the brutal launch that's being applied to them from like 1,000 horsepower or 1,200 horsepower. So if you have something that's fairly low on horsepower, let's say you got a 450 horsepower LA engine and a Dart, the Caltrax is probably going to be your best friend. It'd be one of the best things you ever bought, right? But when you start making big time torque and horsepower, the Caltrax can't
control it.
It can't control the rear suspension at all. It starts pushing them around, and no matter how hard you work at your Caltrax, it was never designed for that, right? So you need to start looking at other suspension options when you get well over, I'd say probably 700 horsepower is about your max.
Yeah, and the issue I was dealing with is because they were really designed to be hit really hard, and I was hitting it hard, but with a glide, and I was hitting it hard for a very long time. So it was just basically it had no time to. And also too, what was crazy about it is that if you notice, my car was dead hooking, like crazy dead hooking. Typically is not what you want. And I had to keep pumping up the air pressure. I was up to 17 pounds of air pressure at some.
I remember, we were talking about that at No Name Nationals because I kept telling you, take it up to 15, take it up, and then you're like, dude, I'm up at 17 now. Like,
I'm at 17 and I'm still crushing the tire. Like if you watch some of the videos, it was still crushing the tire. I've got tubes. I never got a chance to put them in, but I was going to run tubes just to keep them from crushing the tire because I couldn't get. Typically, you're going to want on a slick a little bit of slip because that's how the slick works. Is it wants a little bit of. You typically want them to squat. You want them to spin slightly as it gets traction. It goes up. They don't like dead hook so much.
Right, and you also like a little bit of crush on the sidewall, but not a lot because it makes the footprint get longer.
And then it folds the tire. It folds the tire, and that's when you start to get.
Yeah, when it starts to buckle the tire, you need to start adding air pressure until it stops buckling the tire.
Yeah, at No Name Nationals, John was behind me, and I think he heard it, but that was the very first time I wadded the tires, and I had tire shake on that car. First time ever I had it, and man, it let you know. Like I felt it. I was like, whoa! Like it hit so hard in there, it shifted second gear for me. The car shook so hard when it went into tire shake. So, yeah, and I was at 15 pounds of air pressure at that point too. So, all right, okay, the bug squatting because they are IRS rear end. Actually, no, the IRS ones squat less than a swing axle. The swing axles are the absolute worst because they just literally pivot like this. There's just one pivot right there. But they're squatting because all the weight's in the back. And so, I mean, their instant center literally is behind the tire. I think it's right on the tire.
Well, it literally is the fulcrum of the tire. The tire is the fulcrum.
Yeah, so when you get on the tire, anytime you accelerate in a Volkswagen, that's why they make such great off-road vehicles because all the weight's already there. You don't need much in the front. But when you accelerate, literally the second you take off, it's literally behind the tire, and that's why they want to come up really easily.
I think, to be honest with you, I think the instant center is almost where the back seat's at.
Could be.
It's like right in front of the axle.
Yeah,
and that's what makes them great for off-road, man.
Yeah. Bobby's saying something here, and I got to see this. So the VWs and Sega would run the same tire as the super stock cars, 29/7. They do massive wheelies on that tire. Did you know that August, like they're coming to Jackson? We're got a whole party of people from our work are going up there to go watch it.
So it's fun, dude. But we were planning on going to cruising the coast, right? So
yeah,
they're going to be down there too.
Yeah, so they're going to be here at Jackson. So, I didn't think there was any Volkswagens in the Sega series, but I think that's awesome.
The H-gas cars. That's an H-gas car. They got quite a few H-gas cars. There isn't just bugs. There's one bug that's famous. It's called sauerkraut, right? And then
I know that one. Yeah.
Okay, and then there's a couple of like inline six powered ones, like a Nova, and then there's I don't know, maybe like a Henry J with a inline six in it. It's an H-gas, but they're kind of neat. You know,
What's the rules for H-gas? What is that?
I don't know what the weight to cubic inch deal. It is a weight to cubic inch deal,
Okay.
but I think they have to be 6-cylinder or smaller, and then I think it can be front or rear engine. I mean, I tell you what, I think the ideal combination for that setup, if you were going to go race something in H gas, would be like Corvair. I think would absolutely murder. So,
Right.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Triple M is asking, I've noticed my Dart does the same thing, raises up on launch, prep for the light instead of squatting. Yeah, because of the pinion snubber. And usually with super stock springs, it's actually going to move even more because they'll stack
Reverse.
the springs going forward and they lessen the springs going back. So yeah.
Yeah, they
In
get
fact,
worse.
Dallas said I'm going to have the Caltrax that was on the Cookie Monster is going on this car.
It'll actually be perfect for that setup.
I agree. That's the reason why I'm doing it.
Yeah, and if you get the low first, it's going to hammer the tires hard, probably.
I'm going through and see if there's any other questions here. Sorry, we got a little behind. Oh, Andy's here. Hey, Andy, how you guys doing tonight?
We're waiting, or we're getting behind, dude.
Yeah, we're getting behind.
I need to be like you. Hey, man, you need to drop down to the bottom and forget what everybody said. He doesn't say that to me. I'm just giving
Bobby's saying something here, and this is interesting. Caltrax work better in higher horsepower manual cars than higher horsepower automatic cars with the proper clutch setup. I can see that because
I think it's because they're hammering the tire.
exactly hammering the tire, then they're letting off, and then they're hammering it again. Where an automatic just keeps the constant load on it, so that way it just keeps,
Well, you got the initial torque multiplication of the automatic coming off at trans brake, so it hammers the tire just like a manual car, but then it keeps. Well, you got your torque multiplication factor from the torque converter actually works better than a manual, right? Because there is no torque multiplication with a clutch. It's just the gear ratios inside the transmission.
Yeah.
So I think as it's constantly applying power the whole time with the automatic, I think that the torque multiplication factor probably overpowers the Caltrax.
I think that's what was happening because on my 3-speed, I had a converter in it, but it would hammer on it. The car would come up, then you would shift a second, then it would set back down, and then it would go. But with the Glide, that thing's I'm leaving the line at 5,000, and my converter's I think it's a 6,000 stall converter, 6,200 when it's on 150 shot nitrous, and it's literally at 6,200 for half the track. You know what I mean? In first gear, just and it's literally, and as it's going, it just keeps hammering you. You feel it just you hammer.
It's not working the way that the Caltrax is designed. The Caltrax is meant to stabilize it when it hammers it.
Yes.
And then I think what happens is since it just keeps applying power, you get the spring starting to wrap up and it deforms the shape, or it doesn't change the shape. It changes the geometry of that Caltrax.
Yeah. And you know what's funny too is I got the Caltrax 9010 front shocks on the front of this car now too.
So, dude, we're gonna have to tie that sucker down.
It's got 9010s on it, man.
Going on the tail of dragon.
And then I measured the front.
Dude, put a sway bar on the front. We'll just take it off when we get to the track. Just put a sway bar on. Please. It's gonna be bad.
I might. In fact, I probably will. But Tony he put I think he spent a little money on these front torsion bars because they're not. I think the factory ones for a slant 6 is like 920. I think these are 912s. So these I think are super stock front torsion bars on this thing.
Oh,
so
maybe he may have just had a set laying around. You know, I don't know.
So they're smaller than the slant 6 ones because I was putting some load on them and I was like, wow, these things they're springy. Michael Schmidt saying, popping the clutch on my manual car slams the tires hard down, squat. Are the leaf springs too weak, or are the Rancho shocks used to correct this? And do I know when to add more leaf spring? Okay, the Rancho shocks on my car, because I actually have Rancho 9000s on the Calverts. I bought these before they went to the Calvert 9, but that's all it is, Rancho 9000. When I would run the trans brake, I would set them on number 5 or 6, depending on the track. When I would use a foot brake, I'd set them on either 1 or 2. because I would want it to move a little bit more. But on the trans brake, I'd want it to take some of the absorption. Case in point, I had these things set on 9 when I had, and there was no, I needed twice the amount of rebound that I had on the Rancho 9000s. I needed way more. So
Well, okay, so there's also another factor. When you're popping the clutch in your manual trans car slams the rear of the car down hard, squat, or the leaf spring's too weak, they're on a manual trans and a leaf spring car. The thing you got to be concerned with is like one, if it's an old car, it'll have leaf springs it'll be mounted on top of the rear axle. And then the later cars went to leaf spring, or the axle was on top of the leaf spring.
Yeah.
Right. And when the axle is below the leaf spring, it generally has wrap so bad that you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. You need to actually move that thing inside and up above the leaf springs so that it won't wrap as bad. And then I think they do not make a Caltrax for an axle that's below the leaf.
No,
because I don't think it can even function.
No, they made them for the trucks, but I think the trucks still have to go underneath.
I think they have to have a flip axle kit.
It's got to have a flip axle, yeah. He's asking another one here too. Are the Caltrax used? Only drivers can use them on the street between races too. Yes, but here's the thing: you got to set them up differently. On the Caltrax, you have an upper rod that basically loads the top of the spring right before the eyelid on it, and that's where the rod that you twist underneath preloads that. Typically, if you're going to drive it on the street, they tell you to use a nickel. Believe it or not, that's your measurement. You put a nickel right underneath that rod and the spring, and that's the setup for driving on the street. That gives you bump and control.
Suspension travel.
Yeah, suspension travel. And then when you need it, typically if you're driving on the street, you're not going to have a super crazy amount of power. Or you can actually do it with a dime. A dime is basically the lowest you want to set it for driving on the street. I've tried it both ways, and they're correct. On my car, I would actually use preload. The more preload you put into it, the less the car is going to move because it's already loaded the springs. So that's how you can do it. So you can use a dime is the best.
Yeah, and the other the Caltrax bar is going to limit your suspension travel, right? So when you do hit the maximum travel with that thing, you'll hear a big bang because it can't travel any further, right? Like the geometry is limited by that Caltrax bar. So just be careful with that stuff was never really intended to be on the street. It was primarily meant for the drag strip.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and now the one I have has only got 2 adjustments. It's got an upper hole and a bottom hole. Some of the new ones now have got 3 holes, and the leaf spring relocation kit I put in this one, instead of one front eye hole, I've got 3 front eye holes, plus I got 2 adjustments there. So I'm going to be able to dial this thing in wherever it wants to go. Bobby's saying that Sega changed the rules for H-gas was 10 pounds per cubic inch is what it was.
Originally when I was going to take the 63 Buick, I got in contact with these guys because I was wanting to run. I couldn't run the gas class because it didn't have, I want to say there was a mandatory straight axle. You had to have a straight axle front, I think was mandatory. Maybe not, I don't remember. But they had a problem with my all aluminum 215 I wanted to run. And it's no, dude, you can run a different class. And then I said, well, how about super stock? You can't run that aluminum engine in super stock. And I'm like, dang, I'm the only one out here with a factory block.
Right.
I can't run the class because it's not allowed. But they were gonna make some accommodations for me to show up with a aluminum block 215 if that's what I was going to show up with. And then when I told what is his name, Robert Peffley, I think it's Robert Peffley was the boy. I said, yeah, I can make a 364 cubic inch 215 aluminum block. And they're like, oh, hold on a minute, dude. That I don't think that's going to fly, right?
Oh. No, they've changed a lot of the rules lately. Like I was saying, do you think they could do it now? Because that would be bitching, man.
What's that?
To do an
aluminum 215 motor?
Yeah, I mean, what? No one's going to care. That way, all the engine manufacturers are represented. In Volkswagen's in it.
Oh, they told me if you want to run a Buick, because this is what I contacted them years ago about, when I first got the car, and they're like, if you want to run a Buick, you get a combination together because we think this is the most absurd thing that I've heard, right? You get a combination together and show up, and we will make it fit the rules. And I'm like, awesome. And then they're like, can you make it competitive? I'm like, I don't know. And then Quayne said, he said, well, look, if it's way off the mark, we'll pull weight off of it till it is competitive, just so to have a Buick out there, right?
Exactly. That's
And I'm
exactly what I'm
like,
saying.
that's pretty cool, So I thought that was neat. But then, it was like, okay, what, 3 years of divorce, and then now they're running clutchless 4 speeds, and I just can't hang with that kind of money. If
Yeah.
it was something that was going to be like,
Like
double throw down factory stuff, I
like it
could
was
probably
back.
make it
Yeah.
work. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, like it was back when because we were talking about this a while back, where it was just like
Oh
it was
yeah.
like grassroots racing. It was awesome. Like we were going to do something.
Well, and that's why I think if you notice, like there's kind of a theme amongst like the racers at No Name Nationals, and that's like grassroots racing. That's why Andrew and Calvin Nelson come, is because they're kings of grassroots racing, right?
Making
Like,
it work,
yeah,
right?
the real deal racing behind it, the engineering, the mind overcoming the problem instead of just spinning your way out of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about this community, is that that's the way I've tried to focus and tailor the AHRA, is I wanted real racing, right? Um, Racing is not about what kind of electronics you can throw in the car and get the car to run whatever number. Racing is actually intended to be like the driver is the one that makes all of the difference.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I like the bracket racing. If you ever watch the AHRA bracket racing stuff, I offered bigger payouts to people that did it the harder way.
Yeah. Stick shift.
Stick
No.
shift,
Yeah.
yeah,
Clutch.
stick shift, and then I had a if you showed up and ran the box class with no box and won, the payout was double. There was a lot of neat things, because what I was trying to do was put the driver back into the sport.
Yeah.
The problem was a lot of people weren't willing to drop all their driver raids to go race for the extra cash. I don't know. I thought it was going to work well, but I guess it didn't go bad. I can't say it was bad. I had a lot of guys going after that extra cash.
Here, okay. He's making a thing. I like that we ask questions, then suck to progress. No need to spend money we don't have. Look, I'm telling you, on this car here, on Plan Z, everything that's going in this car, except for like a few little things here and there, is just leftover stuff I have laying around. Like the whole front suspension, I didn't even know I had an extra set in there, but that was literally a 75 Dodge car that I got in a wrecking. Or no, I think I got that at a swap meet or something for like $10 or something. It was just ridiculous. So I've had it. I carried it from California all the way to here, and now it's on Plan Z. The rear end was just sitting that was out of my car. I'm putting it in here. I'm building a transmission, and then the transmission is going to land wherever the aluminum drive shaft allows it after the rear end's in it. So I'm going to basically set the engine wherever the transmission lands and wherever the drive shaft lands it, because I don't want to spend any extra money on it. So yeah, don't spend money you don't have. Just make it work. 10 pounds per cubic inch. What does that mean? If you have 230 cubic inch slant set, does your car have to weigh 2,300 pounds or less?
No less. Yeah, no less than that.
Yeah, no less than that. Okay. So it has to be 2,300, just like we have on the Triple Crown.
Right.
Oh,
It's the same thing.
speaking of which, we were going to talk about the Triple Crown class. People were asking about that, and I was going to ask about John about having or something on the HRA about having a sign up sheet, or just who's ever interested or who's doing it. Because I know we haven't really had a lot of lives here talking about it, but we are getting down to like I think we're under 60 days now, aren't we?
Yeah, we needed to get something ironed out for the Triple Crown. And I mean, I don't know who's going to run it, but I mean, I think there was virtually 4, maybe 5 cars, but you got to start somewhere. And like, if you think about it, Southeast Gassers literally started with 2 cars, right?
Yeah.
So you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And 4 cars, I'm not opposed to, and I think it's kind of cool. But the reality of it is, we need to get that thing ironed out, and then make sure that we're capable of running it in accordance with the rules. That's the big one.
Well, I think this first year, I remember when we first started this, I was kind of a big stickler, like, let's stay to the rules. I just say that we have the rules out there. Basically, show up with what you have. We're going to allow everybody to vote who runs and who whatever.
I
But
think
I
that's
can
the
tell you
best
right
thing
now,
to do.
I'm going to have some really cool prizes for the Triple Crown. I got to tell you, there's going to be some cool stuff out there. So, and also too, last night on Buff Del Campo and Kim, they were talking about the Slant Six class, and I guess somebody's already donated money for that. So I told Kim, I was like, Kim, why don't you just run with it? And she made the thing of making it a bracket race, which I think is probably the best thing for that, because if the Nelsons show up with their the Ameribera that runs in the eights, and then somebody shows up with their Slant Six whatever car, there's no way to run them, but you could in a bracket. So I think what I told Kim is that she's going to run with it. So I told her, just be the boss on this. So I think Kim's going to do that. So go over to Buff Del Campo and Kim. I think they're going to be setting up a bracket race for the Slant Six class. I don't know anything about it. Go talk to them about it and see how that's going to play out. But they're going to have a six-cylinder class at the No Name Nationals this year too. Pretty soon the No Name Nationals is going to need another day. You know that?
I, but we need to get this moving forward, big
Yes.
time. Not
Yeah.
the show. I'm talking about the No Name Nationals. We need to get it moving forward, where I'd like to see things that are like kind of outside the box and interesting and fun, and
Yeah.
like
A theme
keeping
every
you all
year, a new
together,
one.
but yet really fun.
Yeah, that's why I like this Triple Crown thing, is because that's when you and I were talking about that all those days, me going back and forth to TCI, and we were talking about it. I saw the magic in it, because this puts people it gives them a chance for a whole year of content of building this, then the race, and they have something to look forward to, and this is something they can keep growing into, and then we'll just see where the dust settles. We'll see which combinations need a little bit
Well,
extra weight and whatever.
yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, if I wasn't like buried with everything going on in my life, I'd be running that Triple Crown. I'd have my little Buick out there running that Triple Crown, or I would have taken the Easy 302 and got myself a Monza with a Vega with a T10 4-speed out of my super stock car, and I would have ran that thing, because it would have been fun. It would have like, one, heads up. Okay, there's nothing more fun than heads up stuff. There really isn't. I mean, you can say bracket racing's fun, but I'm telling you, when the cars are evenly paired and heads up, and you take off and you look over at the other car next to you, and they're barely pulling on you, or barely you're pulling on them, there is a lot to be said about butt pucker factor on trying to win that race. I mean,
Right.
I'm telling you, the first time I did it, like, I tried to shove the gas pedal through the floorboard, and I was pulling on the
Scooch
steering
it.
wheel like, oh,
Trying to scooch the car.
yes. It is like, oh man, I gotta get this guy, like,
Yeah, right.
it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun.
For me, that was Greg Curtis. I must have raced Greg Curtis in match racing probably 9 times, man. That guy was that. Our cars were so comparable. I mean, he had a big block Chevrolet. That was a big engine. It was like a 525 or something like that.
I had to race him too. And
Yeah,
he was pulling on me at the big end by like 6 mile an hour or something.
yeah,
But
yeah. He was pulling on me by about 4 or 5 mile an hour. But yeah, he was I would have him all the way, like literally like this, right? And then he would just that big. You would hear that thing start digging
yeah, I
in.
know.
And,
That's
man,
what sucked about it, was like you could hear it sucking your car back into his carburetor.
yeah,
And like, I thought I was making a lot of horsepower. That thing was probably making like 900 horse,
yeah.
right?
But it's
But
a
his
show
was
quality car.
well, his was a nice drivable street car, right?
Yes.
Like, it had all the street stuff on it, the cranks and the windows and door panels and nice seats and stuff like that. Mine is like a freaking gutted race car.
Yeah,
So,
right. Mine
yeah,
too.
I mean, whatever.
I raced him, and one time he's like, "Hey man, can you help me tune this?" I went up and tuned his car, and he went a tenth faster. And I told him, I was like, "Man, I just got you a tenth faster," and it was on a really high altitude day. And he goes, "Hey, you want a match race?" And I'm like, "Damn it!"
Dude, my first guy I had to race at the Match Race Madness was a guy named Nefty Figueroa. And he
I
had
know
like
him.
this hardcore freaking street race Nova.
I've
Yeah,
raced with that guy for almost 20 years, man.
it was called the Mighty Mouse. And I mean, this thing,
Mighty
Google it,
Mouse.
right? Because it's like pictures from Verona, this sucker's like on the bumper straight up. And I mean, it is not leaving anything on the table for anybody.
Yeah.
It's fast. And he ended up tearing something up and didn't show up. So I ended up racing. You remember that guy we gave the trophy to for like the best wheelie, that Ron guy?
Yeah.
I can't remember what his last name. Ron Jones? I think it was Ron Jones. And I raced him, man. And I mean, that dude was hardcore. Like he was not the fastest car at the track. It was a 327 and like a 65 Chevelle and 4-speed, and it had a bunch of or no, it was an automatic, and it had a bunch of nitrous on it, like a bunch, like 200 shot, 250 shot, something like that. Everybody would like pull Ron the first time, right? Ron would put a show on like you wouldn't believe. This car would leave standing straight up, and it wasn't all that fast. I mean, because he was leaving a lot on the table by doing them crazy wheelies. He really was. But God, it was a great show.
Yeah. Damien's actually saying something here. I remember this. He goes, my race with Shane the first year was like that. Seeing me creeping up on him after he treed me was the greatest feeling ever. Because literally, I had about a car and a half. He had a 318 in it, and that was the year I had all the kids with me. So like, I didn't have it tuned up. I had just come back from drag week, so I had it set up for mileage, and I didn't. It was literally the weekend after drag week, and so he was coming like this. And it was just, I mean, creeping like 2 miles an hour. Oh, that was so fun. I felt great for him. I was like, man, that's awesome, dude.
I didn't have that last year because Michael Yielding, I literally just murdered that dude off the line. And that car went around me like I was sitting still. I mean,
like
it was fast.
Who was the guy that I raced in the Black Mustang? What was his name? The guy that you raced him, the 2 out of 3 race. Barrett or Bartlett or Barney or the guy that you raced in the blue car. You raced a guy in a blue car.
Oh, Barkley.
That's it. Yeah, I raced Barkley in a black Mustang, and I lost traction. I pedaled it 3 times. I remember looking right over him, and as soon as that car caught traction, I literally drove away from his life by 10 miles an hour instantly. Instantly, I was looking right at him. He's looking right at me, and I'm
dude. I pulled Yielding first. Remember, I pulled you first, and it was like, oh, this sucks. And they're like, oh, we have a misdraw because somebody didn't have a chip. Like, oh, thank God.
Thank God, right? Then, I was like, we came all this way to race each other? What the fuck?
I know. The second chip I pulled Yielding first round is who's got the fastest car on the property, right? And I told Shane, I'm like, we're walking back, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to get beat pretty bad here. I said, but I'm not going to go out without a fight, right? So I said, go up there with your camera because I'm pulling all the stops out of the suspension and everything. I'm going to let it eat. And then when we got up there, I told Shane, I said, here's what's going to happen. This thing's an instant green. He isn't going to expect it. I'm going home anyway because this car has got me by like a second and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to count 1, 2, and I'm going to let it eat. And I said, if I red light on an instant green, which is almost impossible, right? Okay. But if I don't red light, this dude won't have a clue what just hit him. And man, if you go back and look at John Wilburn's video, like his intro video, dude, I probably had a second half off the line. Everybody was pointing at me for the win, and then that car was just like, phew,
When I raced that the second round, I pulled that guy that 2,000 plus horsepower zoomy. What was it?
The Instigator.
Yeah. That guy. I had that guy just covered. I couldn't look. I will admit it, man. I missed a shift because I couldn't hear my car with those zoomies going on that thing. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't even think with that car next to me coming. It was behind me. I had him covered. If I would have hit top gear in that, because I think he only ran like a 590 in that race, and I was good for 570 with my setup all day. In fact, when I went up to race Joe, I went a 570 at 125 miles an hour, 26 miles an hour. I was only running. It was two seconds of I was running a 200 kit, and I had it for 2 seconds of ramp in. And because the track was really hot that day, But man, if I had got that, that would have been great because I had him just. I went up there and you told me, you're like, just go up there and count to 2 and just let her eat. I went up there and I went 1, 2.
And it's like the car literally is like already doing a wheelie, but as soon as it comes out of the beams, the light's like instant green.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember leaving because I was in the left lane. I remember leaving the button, looking over, and the car's coming up, and then I see the green light come on, and then I start to roll forward.
I know. Remember, I told you that. I said, dude, I saw the green come on, and I'm like, yielding, you are in trouble, dude. Like, but that's like, okay, so that's the real racing stuff. That's what was good about like pro stock in the 80s.
Yeah.
Oh my God, man. They when they used to ladder them out, you have like 16 cars or 32 cars vying for 16 spots. And they'd take first round would be number 1 qualifier versus number 16. And the number 16 guy better either step up his game, murder the tree, hope the other guy break his other car, right? That's the only way he's going to win. He's this first round qualifier versus 16th. And so I'm like, I got nothing to lose. I'm going home anyway. I might as well just feed him as much of the tree as I can, and hopefully he just craps himself.
Yeah.
And it worked so good. I mean, Shane and I were laughing about it. Like, we didn't even care. We both lost. It didn't matter. It was just like, golly, did you see I put like 4 cars on them? You know?
You put on a clinic. And that's the funny thing about it too, is that, that's the total street racers in us, is that we just had to you know how many times I've raced a car and I knew they were going to beat me, but I beat them just on beating them at their own game, just the launch and how everything went. I literally went, that's how we did it there, is that if you would have just got just a hair second, you would have won that one, right? If I would have hit second gear correctly, I would have fucking got that guy. So it was just one of those things,
Yeah. But it was like, you got to put on the show. That's what the wheelie was all about, right? Like, I was taking all the straps off because I was like, I wanted a wheelie. People remember this, right? Yeah. And then no one talks about his win at all. They're just talking about, did you see that wheelie and the freaking clinic you put on at the tree?
And then when I raced Joe, I told Joe, I was like, hey Joe, we're gonna go up there, we're gonna race. You're a big celebrity YouTube star now, so let's put on a show. Let's go out there and do a big burnout, and let's back up and let's do the whole show. He didn't do as much of a burnout as me. I literally did a half track burnout.
I know.
Nobody talks about
half track burnout.
Nobody talks about anything but the half track burnout that I did.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the stuff I do like to. Man, I don't know what's going to happen this year at No Name Nationals, but I sure would like to. I don't know, have fun.
That's what I'm going to do. Is I'm just going to go there.
On my grill game this year. For the community cookout, I'm just going to focus on my grill game, and then whatever happens, I guess.
Yeah, we have a track day for Edelbrock. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of car testing, and I got to do some nitrous testing. So that's on Tuesday. Tuesday is supposed to be the hottest day of the year here so far. It's 100 degrees temperature plus whatever the heat index is going to be, and we're going to be there in the afternoon. Sounds terrible. But I literally haven't taken my blue car to the track since I changed the suspension on it. I just don't really care. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, you haven't had any weather, and then that kind of takes the fun out of it when you're like, maybe this weekend. Woo! I'm all packed up, ready to go. Oh man, and then it's like, all right, now it can't rain this weekend. It's been 6 weekends in a row. Oh crap, it rains.
Yeah,
and
we had 2 weekends since that were not hot, perfect weather, that I couldn't go to because they were it was in March. And then they were like perfect because my truck wasn't finished with the trans done yet. Oh, yeah. As soon as I got the trans back, guess what happened? We had 1 week of fall of spring, and then it was hot. And then it just started raining every year, every weekend. Literally, it was raining every.
Well, it has rained here twice as much, 2 times as much as Seattle this year.
Yeah, it's rained a lot here this year.
2 times as much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Michael Schmidt has a good question here.
Where is it? Right here. Right here. Perfect.
Yeah. Compression ratio on your slant. How do you decide what static ratio you have to, or do you just make the highest compression ratio you can and then pick a cam to manage dynamic compression ratio, i.e., bleed off compression ratio with overlap.
Okay. All my slants, like my is slant daily garage. So literally most of my slants are going to be for daily driving. So I'm trying to keep the compression low for that because I'm not running big cams, so that way I can have a higher running compression. This slant six that I'm building for Plan Z, the camshaft in it is going to be literally the biggest cam I can put in there without cutting the pockets. So I did a valve drop video. So I can put a 230, 240 duration cam at 50 on a 110 LSA. To run that compression with that kind of camshaft, I'm going to need about 9 to 9.5 to 1 compression, and I'm going to try to put at least another atmosphere in it, so probably about 14 psi if I can, and keep the head gaskets on it, because remember, I'm just going to be running a factory head gasket with head
Copper
studs.
coat. Yeah, copper coat.
Yeah, right. And head studs. Other than that, that's really what I'm doing. But normally, if we're not talking about slant, we're talking about an engine. I've said this 1,000 times, and Dallas has said this 1,000 times. Buy the best heads I can. I work around from the best heads, lightest components I can, and then I pick the RPM I'm going to be at, and then I build my compression to the RPM to the camshaft, and then I then my running compressions, I calculate that a little later on. But I'm usually doing a PSI on those. There's cranking pressure on those.
Well,
that's how I do it.
Yeah, and you guys, if you're a novice and you haven't really built an engine, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, and this is just coming from somebody who's done it with like low buck stuff for like a long time, right?
I know exactly where you're going.
You build that engine 1,000 times in your head before you buy one component.
Agreed.
Okay, and you need to ask yourself a couple of questions, like, what is the purpose of this, right? And you stick to that purpose. If you say it's a great, nice street driver, do not worry about buying a custom cam. Do not worry about buying like the best cylinder head possible. Try to create as much low end torque as possible, exactly, at a good, reasonable RPM.
And buy the smaller camshaft. The one that you picked out, buy the next one down, you'll be happier.
Yeah, and that's Shane and I have said that many times. It was like, it's easy to over camshaft something, right? It's much better to have a really badass set of heads with a very meager camshaft than it is a really big cam and just, like if you put badass heads with a really big cam and then you got a horrible combination, generally it's meant for just a drag strip and that's it. But the smaller the cam you go, the more drivable it normally is, the more fun it is on the street.
Michael Schmidt, here's another one too, is that this is the reason why I've been giving out some of my my recipe for small block Mopars, is because these are tried and true combinations that work well in the street. And what I tell people is build your first engine, build someone else's recipe or come close to it. Like, see what you like about it, see what you don't like about it, but build it, because you got to start somewhere. You got to see, what do I like? Do I like the mid-range power? Do I want more top end? And then you can tailor it from there. You change the camshaft, obviously you're going to have to raise with compression and go from there. But that way you kind of know where you're starting at with the recipe engine.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, that way you're not having to figure out the combination and everything and the technique, right? Because if you're building one, it'd be like your first time. You have no technique and no combination, so you're trying to figure it all out. Don't worry about the combination if you pick somebody else's, something that already works, right? Like, and that's what I did. Small block Fords. I'd never done small block Fords. I had done small block Buicks many times, but small block Ford, I didn't know. Well, they used to have like this factory stock class where guys had to run factory part numbered 5-liter Ford parts in a Fox body. And there was a combination that just kind of popped up in the middle of, I don't know, maybe the third year, where it was GT40P heads, an E-cam, 1.7 rockers, and you'd want to get like 9.5 to 1 compression out of the short block. It was like a stock short block with that stuff, right? Dude, I ran that combo for years, and because it was so well refined, and I mean, it took my T-Bird from like 15-second turd to like 1270s on the motor, right? And it was drivable. It run on 89 octane gas. It'd get freaking 28 miles a gallon on the highway. It was a awesome freaking setup. I think that combo, the only thing I actually did was I ended up taking the factory Cobra rockers, because Cobra rockers a 1.7 rocker. And I took those off, which were like a comp cam, or no, it was a crane cam vacuum formed rocker that was for a pedestal mount.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took my GT40P heads, had them drilled for studs, and grind the pedestals down. And I put some good comp 171 roller rockers with a 7/16 stud on it. And then I put a custom ground comp E-cam. I took the same profile, but I put it on a custom billet grind instead of a cast iron grind. And it was like worth like, I'll bet 15 horsepower just for the cam.
Because it's not twisting.
Right. And it doesn't flex. It doesn't give up lift, and they're actually consistent. And there was a lot to be gained. It was like 15 more horse, but it's literally the same profile.
Yeah.
And then
area under the curve too, the camshaft,
Well, the rockers ended up picking up, I'll bet another 20, because they weren't the other ones were crane cams and they're on a pedestal. And if you ever look at a Ford small block, it's a 5/16 bolt that holds that rocker arm on. Right? Yeah. It's like jack crap. They flex all over the place, and you end up losing your lift and your duration in the rocker itself.
Yep.
And when I went to that stud mount where it was a 7/16 stud, that's a big stud, right? Like that's what you read on like big block Chevy.
Yes.
And then I put that rocker on. The rocker weighed about the same, but the stud didn't flex at all, especially that little lift in the hydraulic roller cam. And then I took the weight out of the push rod, and I took the weight out of the retainer. And that way it would rev quick and it would rev high. So made a big difference. Small block Ford, I love small block Fords. They're great until you hit like 600 horse.
Michael Schmidt, 7-Eleven. So we got a little fun going.
Sweet.
And just a heads up, guys. So that way we can keep this kind of going. I'm going to be keeping it. I'm going to pay for the subscription. So I'm going to do a subscription. So any type of money that you send will go 100% to the subscription. Anything else goes to Dallas Fund for the barbecue.
Oh, well, no, you don't have to do that. I'll be fine with that.
All right.
But, Dallas is going to have I don't know, at one point, I guess I am going to have a freaking Let's Thrash on the 63 Buick party, because everybody was asking about that like a year and a half ago.
Let's do it.
And I got to do it, man.
Yeah. So Miss Catchy's asking, what PSI do you like, Shane? Okay. So if it's a small block, okay, let's just something I'm super familiar with. So small block Mopar. Okay. Let's just start there with one of my recipe engines. If this is something that's running on, say, in California, we had like, say, mid-grade or I'm not even going to say 91. Let's just say mid-grade, or even was 87, I think is what the fuel was. I would want right around 150 to 160, 165 in that range for cranking pressure. Anything over, say, 165 to 185, you're getting into the 91 octane area. Once you start getting over that, you got to be really mindful of your timing. On my race cars, I've got over 200 on those.
You can, those, like he's talking about though, like when you start going over 165, you can minimize that with aluminum heads. You run aluminum head. Now it's like having, 160.
1 point less. Yes. And actually, here's the thing is that if you put aluminum head on a car, we've said this before, if you have cast iron 9-to-1, you have aluminum 9-to-1, the cast iron is going to make more power. Just if they're all equal, just because the aluminum will dissipate so much heat, and you got to have some heat in the cylinder. So you got to go a whole point more. And because you're running a point more, you're going to make more power because of that. But then you keep the heat in the cylinder head. That is with the cast iron setup. Now, when the recipe that I have for the aluminum head for the Magnum, literally it's 10 psi more on everything, and you can get away with it. So I would be like, say, 160 to 175, and you can kind of run the mid-grade 175 to about 185 ish. Now every engine's different, that's why I'm using these words ish,
and it's all dependent upon temperature and your air fuel ratio and
everything.
a bunch of stuff.
That's why I'm giving you a range. This isn't like this is the number. I'm going to hit this number. No, there's issues in here. There's
Well, we used to
valve
like you used to
gap.
quench detonation. Like, okay,
Yes,
quenching detonation.
different too. Yes, that's
You
why I'm
got
using the scale.
timing that
Yes.
causes detonation issues, and you got fuel that causes
This is
detonation
it.
issues.
Yes. And
Okay,
altitude. See, in California, we had from one city to the next, you could go up 2,000 feet. Here not so much. So this is why I would have ranges for wherever they were at, and I would tailor the camshafts to them. And if they were going to race at Verona, and at that time there was Carlsbad still around, or if they were just going to be a street racer, because street racing was the best. And I know Dallas and I talked about this 1,000 times, but when you're down there by the border, you're literally at
sea
20
level.
feet above sea level. Sometimes the DA was below sea level a few times.
Like
Like,
in the fall. In the fall, when the
yes,
when the dew would come in, you knew it
yes.
was going to get good, right?
Yeah. The DA would drop to like 200 feet below sea level, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's on. But the turbo cars then would run really good then too.
I didn't see any turbo cars out there at that time, but I'm sure some of the Hondas and stuff because
That's
they
that's
weren't
what I mean.
big when I was out there. That was probably a couple years after I left.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah.
ended up going to Japan, but after '97, I wasn't there. The That's what's hard about Southern California, like building a hot rod in Southern California, is like I lived down near the beach because I was staying in Navy housing, right? So it's like 4 feet above sea level or 10 feet above sea level, not very far. And then where Shane was living in, like in El Cajon, CNT area, it was like probably what, maybe
15.
1,100 feet, 12,
Yeah, it was
1,500 feet.
yeah, 1,500 foot.
Okay. And then where we raced at Verona was like 3,200 foot,
Yeah,
right?
and that
Like
was
we
that
had,
was 12 minutes away. 12 minutes away from my house.
so your combination, like you could be detonating all over the place when you're just driving to the drag strip and you make the worst runs ever, but then you drive down at home and it's running great. So the ticket used to be make it a little bit fat, and then what you would do is make it fat at like 3,200 feet, right?
Hmm.
And then as you went down toward the water, it would lean out,
Yeah.
right? Because the air pressure's higher, right? So it was hard to actually make something that was a hot rod that was good at driving on the street there, because the fuel also only ranged from like 87 to freaking
91.
91,
Yeah, and
right?
with 15% or 20% ethanol in the damn shit,
Yeah,
it's just
it was 20% in the
yeah,
87, and you're like,
yeah,
golly, man, my junk won't even run on this. You know,
exactly. And that's why I got so good at tuning carburetors is for that reason right there, is because when you drive a car, especially a hot rod, and say you're going from at the time I was living in Poway and I was racing in El Cajon, no one knows that difference, but that is literally an altitude difference, and then one's more inland than the other. So now you have different humidity,
the
you have
humidity.
drier air and altitude with 20-minute drive. Like you literally have 4 climate zones within 50 miles of each other. You have beach, inland, mountain, and desert within 50 miles of each other right there. So yeah, that's how you get it. Mean Street Mopar is asking a really good question here. Professor P, at what point do you switch from a stock block to an aftermarket block on a Mopar small block? Do you have any experience with the Ritter Racing engine blocks? Okay, I have a lot of experience with this. I should have bought a block when Dallas bought his block back in the mid 2000s. I would have been a lot better off, but I didn't. I bought cylinder heads instead, thinking that the blocks would always be around, and they didn't. Okay. Here's the thing, small block Mopar, 600 horsepower is your number. You can run on a 360 or a 340. You get the Mylodon caps, the 4-bolt, splayed caps, and you could put a small concrete fill into them, a little bit, or you don't even need to do concrete. 600 horse will last all day long. I've done 2 videos on oiling mods that will make them survive. Okay, at 600 horse. 600, and also too, there's another number, RPM. 7,000 RPM is your number. 600 horsepower and 7,000 RPM, 7,500 will get away with it. Once you get over those 2 numbers, the harmonics are just not there, and the block will break. I'm obviously still on in the Cookie Monster. I got a factory block in that, but I've got like 60 pounds of concrete in the damn thing. I've got mounted on caps. I've got everything you can do to it, and it literally is on a time clock from there. So I would go to, if you're expecting to make over 600 horsepower and turn it over 7,500 RPM, I'd go to an aftermarket block. Ritter blocks. Okay. Ritter blocks take about $2,000 to $3,000 worth of machining just to make them usable. They're great blocks, lots of machine work. My experience is buy, if you can, a used 59-degree block that's Siamese bore, standard deck height. I think 9.58 deck height, and or just a 318X block. You'd be light years ahead from there. And just go from there. And those will handle a lot of power, 700 horsepower right there, maybe 1,000, and survive. The Ritter block, though, I'm telling you right now, they're expensive. Plus, there's a lot more money on top of that. For that kind of money, here's what I'm going to tell you, and I've said this 1,000 times. Go get yourself a Gen 3 Hemi, 6.4, put a stock camshaft, just take the stock camshaft out, put an aftermarket cam in it, and you have an engine that literally can idle all day long in the Sahara Desert, never overheat, and make 600 horsepower, and you'll run rings around any small block Mopar and run it on pump gas. I'm just telling it like it is.
I'm going to ask a dumb question here.
Sure.
And then it's just because I don't know. So let me bear with me here, I guess. Give me some grace. Okay. The Poly 318, couldn't you run a Poly 318 block and use all the LA stuff on it?
Yes, you can, but
you're still Poly stronger block.
Well, but the 318 main caps and the 360 main caps are wildly different.
Well, it's got a bigger, it's got a larger diameter main, right?
Yes, and but because it's got longer bolts, the saddle is wider because the saddle's wider. That gives it more support. That's why I've always picked a 360. I'll take the hit on the bigger main for the wider saddle. And that way, when I angle millimeter, it farther out. Everything's farther out, so that way it's got more force to hold it in.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, couldn't you use a 318 poly block, give it a 4-inch bore, and then use that shorter stroke, like steel crank, like 273 or something, and make like 340, right?
Yes.
And wouldn't that block be strong? I guess you're giving up 100 cubic inches by using that smaller main. So you don't have to turn it as hard. So maybe the 360 is a good compromise for that.
And that's the reason why I went for that. Plus, you can find a 360 at that time in California. They were bringing all those, and I've said it 1,000 times, the 79 Cordobas. Those were all the Navy cars and all the Marine cars, the 4-door Cordobas that had rebuilds in them. You can get for $79, and that's the reason why I did it.
Well, that's nice, dude. I remember going in there, and it's like, any engine 79.95, right? And you're like, you would show up at the junkyard and you're like, okay. You walk around in there and you're like, oh man, they got 3 5-liter Mustangs in a row, right? And those things were scabbed all the time. They were like, there was nothing left on them. You'd show up, there's like a lug nut for a 5-liter Mustang. Or right next to it is the Lincoln Mark 7 that no one's touched. It's got the same damn motor in it. And so it was like, oh man, there's a Lincoln in there with a 5-liter HO in it with the forged pistons from '89. I'd run out into the parking lot. I'd get a burrito and a Gatorade, and I'd freaking hammer that motor out of there in like 45 minutes flat while using a seatbelt to pull it, right? And you weren't even expecting to like leave with a motor. I'd have like a car, like with a roof and stuff, and I'd have to pull that motor home and I'd put it in the trunk and then just strap the trunk lid down, right? People are like, man, you guys are freaking nuts. Why would you do that? Well, dude, I mean, you wait around. If you lay on that stuff, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, it is literally gone.
Yeah. Because there's people who would pick those things. That's when the Amazon, or was it not Amazon? eBay was just coming out. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
People would go there and scab those parts, and then they were gone. And they would have these guys too that their job was to pull parts for you. So there was times that
there dudes that wait out in the parking lot waiting for you to pay them.
Yes. And
and
there was times where I went down there and it was just hot and I just didn't feel like it. And I wanted to drink beer and eat burritos in the parking lot. I would pay the $50 to have the guy go in there and pull it, and he would have the thing out and, 2 Coronas and a burrito, and then awesome. I'd buy him something to eat and then get out of there. And I would have a $79 engine. I'd buy the 3-month extra warranty on it. And I knew I was blowing it up in the next, month or so. I didn't care.
Dude, that Home Depot down there on, I don't remember what the exit is. It's like,
that was Maine. That was Maine.
Maine. Yeah. Maine. Right by the Chevy dealership was the Home Depot. Yep. I'd go in there and buy that freaking 70-piece mechanics tool set and literally rip them motors out like in seconds flat, man.
Yeah. Cope's asking a question. Cope, see, look, I'm representing, right? I'm representing the Val Body King of Chicago. Did Shane and Dallas know each other in California? Yes, we did. What's funny is that I wish we were at the exact same spot many times, racing down the same street, but we just didn't know each other at the time in the 90s. But we did pick up 2014, 13 was it? 14, 13?
When did I get out there? 15.
15.
Yeah.
So 15 is when we actually, so about 10 years now is where we actually became like friends. But it's funny because he talks about some of the racing and I was like, dude, I was there. Like I was.
Well, what was weird was like, okay. And you got to understand, like, it's a Navy town, right? So like the locals didn't mingle with the Navy guys because we were always leaving. Right. And then no one took the time to know the Navy guys because we were leaving all the time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until 2015 I was out there on what they call shore duty. That's where you're supposed to have like a 9-to-5 job. And that was my last tour in the Navy. It's what they call your twilight tour. They give you a cush job. It's supposed to be easy peasy and you relax and you work 9 to 5 and that's it. Right. It turned out to be anything but that. But, regardless, Shane and I met, I want to say Verona.
Yeah.
Doing Match Race Madness. And we started talking about
our first adventure was going to Ramona and picking up that truck. Remember that?
Yeah, my truck. Yeah. Well, so my life has been pretty poopy for like a few years. That's where you just learn to put on the smile and go, well, it is what it is. Right. But, I had just moved out there to California. Shane and I were racing at Verona, and we become pretty good friends. We were racing the same series, right? And I had one of the newer Dodge Ram Eco Diesels, and I had bought my wife a Volkswagen Passat TDI. And in California, those things became like distressed merchandise overnight because in like 2015, the news came out that they were like cheating the diesel world. Oh my God, they're cheating the world. The emissions is terrible on them. They're like a Suburban. Well, it was a 54 mile a gallon Suburban is what it was. But so it couldn't have been too bad. You can only create so many hydrocarbons for fuel, right? Like even if all of it's running out the tailpipe at 54 miles to the gallon, you're not creating more hydrocarbons than a Suburban with a big block. You're not going to do it. It's not possible. But California wouldn't let you renew the plates on it. So I had beat the system because we still had a house in Florida and I was renting it out and I flew to Florida and I bought tags for it. But it came to the point where I had to turn it in or that was the mandate. I had to turn it in or fix it, but they didn't have a fix. So you turned it in and I turned it in and I needed another vehicle. I gave my wife the nice Eco Diesel Ram truck. And I took the money from her vehicle and I bought the American Hot Rod Association. And then I took $6,000 out of my own pocket. And that was my new truck. And it was a 1994 Ford that had actually been like a Mexican workhorse on this farmer's farm for like 5 or 6 years.
And when he says farm, he means like we had to 4x4 with my truck and trailer to this back lot, back in, and then pick this thing up and then 4x4 back out.
And it was supposed to run. And that's another thing. It was supposed to run. I just had it running last week. And so I'm like, oh, all right. So we go out there thinking this would be easy. Just drop a battery in it and hit the key and it's going to fire up and drive up on the trailer. It was anything but that. Okay. It was literally like put a battery in it, hit the key. The motor won't even turn over because the head gasket that blew out 5 freaking years ago, the guy didn't even notice. Or he did notice because he changed the plugs on it and he had put the original plugs back in, but then put the new plugs in the front seat. and realized that the motor was filled with water. There's no way it was turning over.
Yeah.
So Shane and I had to first we had to push it out of this field up to the truck, winch it on the trailer, and then drive down the mountain because this thing was like in the mountains, like in CNT, like on top of the mountains.
It was like it wasn't Ramona. It was in between Ramona and Santee. It was like in this like some
A
crazy
valley, yeah.
Yeah, some valley. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, I remember that.
And that was mine and Shane's first adventure. It was something that's supposed to take 45 minutes to an hour. It took like 5 hours.
We were laughing the whole time because it was so hot and it just sucked so bad, and we were just laughing.
And nothing worked the way it was supposed to. And it was just like by the time we got the truck on the trailer, it was just like high five at the like where the hitch ball is at, and just like high five and fuck it, it is what it is, right?
Right.
And I'll buy some food on the way home, kind of stuff.
Right.
Right.
I remember that. We get in the truck and we're just sweating and just laughing. Exhausted. And it was so dusty there, and you're sweating and the dust was coming up. Oh man, God, I remember
there was no asphalt. I mean, this was the country in California. Yeah. This was like dirt farm.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's hard for you guys to imagine that, but where I lived at literally was the redneck area where I was at. We were considered rednecks. We were.
The city stopped where you lived at. Like
we're the very edge.
What does the Navy guys call that?
East Clan Tucky. We called it San Clan Tucky, right?
Yeah. It was out there. It was cowboy country. It literally was cowboy country.
Yeah, we had a rodeo. They had a rodeo every year. It was called Bulls Only Rodeo at the Lakeside Rodeo, and it was literally internationally famous. People would come out there all the time, and we would go to that and just watch fools get wrecked. It was awesome. It was so bitching. Can you believe that we only got 8 minutes left?
Man? I know, dude. Tonight's been a lot of fun. I don't know, dude. So I got divorce coming up here ASAP, like within the next few weeks. I'm thinking, I don't know. After divorce, I'm gonna have to do something. Dude, we should freaking, I don't know, bonsai it out to Southern California, get a burrito or a camshaft at Schneider's.
And just film it.
Yeah, and just live it the whole time.
Yeah.
Something stupid, something dumb. And you know what? I do know. Okay. Every year I go to the Cruise on the Coast, right?
Mm-hmm. That's
like the week after No Name Nationals or 2 weeks after No Name Nationals, something like that. It's the first weekend of October. We're already planning on doing that, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to say Baja 1000 is shortly after that in Southern California.
It is. The 500 is at the beginning of the year, and the 1000's at the end of the year. Dude, one's in the spring, one's in the fall.
How cool would it be if we bonsai trip down there, right? Get a burrito in San Diego at your favorite burrito place. Then we go down to
Ensenada,
Mexico into Ensenada, and we be there on the starting line drinking Tecate beers, watching them three-wheel off the line.
I want to, what for me is where they come off the line, then they drop down into the ditch.
Oh, that ditch would be awesome too.
That's my favorite spot because they're brand new. They're all fresh. Everybody's hungry, and they just got it wide open. And that I've ridden through that because I've done the Baja 500 on the KX 500, and I've been down that ditch at a $110 and hit those little intersections because the roads go through those ditches and they build a ramp, and you hit those things and you're sailing 100 foot plus, man.
Dude, I think that would be cool just to be out there in a couple of the, the lawn chairs. That's like, I don't know, they got the straps on them,
and like swing and stuff, right?
Yeah. You just like on the lawn chair propped up with a cold Tecate, just watching them freaking melee these hills, man. I think that'd be awesome.
So, you got anything coming up? Any videos coming up or anything?
No, I've been sucking on most of this stuff. Like I was supposed to do some easy 302 stuff that just didn't work out. And now I'm actually I've been gathering all my parts for the super stock Buick, the 63 Buick. My plan is to be at the track this year for the Buick Nationals in May of 26. I got a long, hard road to get there. And I don't know if it'll have any paint and body work done to it, but it will be together, and it will be running, and it will be making passes.
Don't get it right, just get it running.
Well, yeah, but I got to weld a bunch of metal back into it because there's
Oh,
nothing holding it together,
yeah.
right? But I really would like to. The paint bodies, like, I'm not too worried about that. There's certain things I have to do because the roof is caved in on it, and I got to fix the hood because it's stripped down. But I don't think I'm going to really go out of my way to paint it yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually leaving on Friday. I'm going to go pick up my daughter. She's been at junior ROTC all summer.
Oh, that's
And
right.
I'm meeting Mopar Al. Mopar Al is getting a piece of Plan Z in trade for a new transmission cross member. So actually new to me, 69 unmolested, undrilled, unswiss cheesed one. So that way we can be safe with a transmission mount that's actually all there. So, but I'm trading him a piece of Plan Z for that. So I'm happy about that.
So, and this picture of, or the comment here by Cope, you know, Shane. Okay, Shane and I became pretty good friends only for like, I guess maybe a year or something before I left there.
Yeah.
A year and a half, maybe 2 years. It wasn't very long. Um, Shane actually got to meet my dad before he died, which was like, that's where everything got hard. Shane was actually working at Crower, and my dad went in there and bought a camshaft from Crower directly at the window. And then Shane recommended a cam for him, like, hey, this is the combination this is the cam you need for that combination. And my father died, I want to say maybe 6 months after that, 7 months.
Wow.
Yeah. But probably the last friend I got that met my father, which was kind of cool. But
I got to hang out with him too, because at the race, at the Match Race Madness, he was there.
Yeah, well, that was he was on a road trip. Came out. Well, I think it was. My dad was like my biggest fan for that thing, for Match Race Madness, right? Because the cool thing about the Match Race Madness, they used to hand out those flyers, right?
So bitchin'.
Yeah, and I didn't email it. I printed it out at work because my dad's like 70 years old, right? Like 67 or something at the time. I printed one of those things out and I just mailed it to him, and I didn't put a return address or nothing on it. And he just called me. He's like, "This is so badass. This is how it was in the 60s." Like, yeah, I know. And he's like, "I'm coming out there for that," and I'm like, okay. And then what match race? That wasn't the one I raced you. That was a different one.
That was a different one. You raced someone else. I don't remember who it was, but I raced the guys in that 55 Chevy that time.
Oh, reading.
Yeah, that's it. Reading
Was
and
that
reading. Reading, or the other one. It was
the silver 57 with the Kragers on it.
Well, I raced him one time, and I raced the other, the one that had the wing on it. It was a yellow and white one. It was like a pro stock looking.
Oh, I don't think I ever saw that one. Oh, I did. It looks like the 50s paint job on it.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I remember that guy. But what was cool is, like, my dad had never been out to Southern California drag racing before. And he came out there. We were partying. Remember they used to throw the party in the pits that was put on by like that beer, like Stone Brewing or whatever.
Stone Brew and Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's, right?
They used to provide our food and drink. And I mean, it was like, that was the coolest part about the race, was just getting bombed the night before in the pits and then sleeping in the bed of your truck and waking up and racing the next day feeling all hungover. And it was just so much fun. But it was like, we're sitting around my trailer, and here's like Joe Sherman came up and was like, "Hey fellas, how's tonight going?" And my dad was like, "You're Joe Sherman. You're the guy that made the 383 small block, right?"
Yeah.
And he was just like in heaven, because it's like all these people you read about in magazines for 30 years were literally just walking around the pits.
Yeah.
And we had oh my God, my dad he never talked about street racing, but it was the Brotherhood of Street Racers. They used to have the LA, there's a big thing for the Brotherhood still, right? But the LA cats used to come down to Verona for Match Race Madness.
Yep.
And my old man started picking them out guy by guy, and like, "Oh, I know this guy. He was, Big Willie's right-hand guy." And you're like, "How do you know Big Willie?" And "Oh, I used to follow the street racers. Like, those guys were badass." And it was like, I don't know, my whole world was coming together at one time.
I
You
hate to
know,
cut this short, but we're right at 2 hours and
I
I'm
know we
getting
got to get going.
flashing lights, I'll go.
All right,
So
I'm
we're getting
already.
flash. But anyways, guys, go check out John Wilburn and on Friday night on John Wilburn. Also, too, Buff and Kim on their channel. They're going to be heading up the 6-cylinder racing, so it's going to be a bracket race. But go to her for that, and then we'll have something coming up for the Triple Crown coming up. And watch for one of my videos. And Dallas is going to have. We'll make him. He'll get a video out soon, right?
Oh yeah, I'll have something come out. I actually have a lot of camera footage squirreled away. I just haven't pooped anything out.
Yeah.
You know,
All right,
need to do.
guys. You guys take it easy, and you guys have a great week. And we'll see you next week right here on the only Wednesday night tech talk with people that actually work on cars and build their own shit. So, all right, you guys have a good week. All righty.
It's the
See
only
you later.
tagline you guys need.
Right, and there it is.